Where do I even begin with this one? Today I had the pleasure of going to see two movies, one of which I'd already seen 3 times in the movie theater, and yes, I'm starting to sound like a crazy person going to see movies several times in the theater. But I had the pleasure of going to see Super 8 for the 4th time, which I'll get to. But the movie I want to talk about with this video is the sequel to 2009's disaster film, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Ergo, the movie we're talking about is Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Now, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen was one of the worst movie experiences I've ever had in the theater. And unfortunately, me being an idiot, I had accidentally pretty much promised 3 different friend circles that I would go see the movie with them. So I ended up seeing Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen 3 times in the movie theater. I think that should say something about how I feel about that film. To explain my past with the Transformers films, I guess I should just try and say it like this. I have no at all relation to the old 80s cartoon. I have the entire collection of it down here somewhere in my collection, but I have not watched much of it. I have watched the old animated movie several times and I really enjoy it. The first live action movie I went into thinking it was going to be bad, and it turned out really liking because I had such low expectations of it. The second movie, I felt all they needed to do was get rid of some of the corny humor that was in it, make it more serious, and just go. And keep focused on Sam. Michael Bay did everything I did not want with that sequel. And because he pretty much wrote it himself, because it had happened during the writer's strike, we had a movie that was divided because it couldn't focus on one character. I always felt like Josh Duhamel and the other the agents and the soldiers were malplaced in the second film. They were not necessary to be in the second film, and any of the characters that I felt were necessary, if any, was like the girl with Australian accent from the first movie who helped them hack and figure out the Decepticons' hacking methods, who was the only character that was not reused for the second film. I didn't feel like Agent Simmons needed to be revisited, at least not in the way that he was, where he was no longer a government employee and was just some crazy kook that, well, pretty much has ruined John Turturro for me in almost everything I've seen him in. As I said, Josh Duhamel's entire thing for the first movie was he wanted to get home to his daughter, and so it made no sense for him to be in the second movie at all. They haven't mentioned his daughter in the second movie, or for that matter, in the third one. So I don't know why he's in this movie except for a quick buck and Michael Bay wanting more soldiers, because that seems to be what Michael Bay does. He wants to make movies that glorify American soldiers. Anyway, it was a movie that had too many characters for its own good, didn't focus on Sam's relationship with Michaela or with Bumblebee for that matter. It was a movie that really felt like no one really fitted into. The plot was stupid, full of plot holes that I don't even want to get into, because that would be a review for another day. And well, yeah, it was the humor most of all was the worst part. The thing I thought they needed to get rid of most of all from the first movie was the humor, and instead that was what Michael Bay decided needed to be amped up. It was pretty much a comedy, you could say. A really, really bad comedy filled with sex jokes, racist jokes, and terrible, terrible puns, and just overall terrible dialogue. The script felt like it was written by a 5-year-old. And yeah, it was terrible. So with this, going into this movie with that in mind, I felt like whatever they do with it, it can't be worse than Revenge of the Fallen. And I can say it right now, Transformers: Dark of the Moon is not worse than Revenge of the Fallen. It is by far superior to Revenge of the Fallen in almost every single way. Its action is better, sort of. Its characters are at least a little more consistent throughout and are focused on the end goal, not just being wacky and stupid. And I guess the things you just be pointed out right from the get-go is that most of the humor is dumb, like is dampened. Skids and Mudflap, the two African American robots, if you want to say, like the gangster robots from the second movie, are not even mentioned in this one, and the movie's better for it. Neither is Sam's roommate Leo from the second movie, whose entire point in that movie was just running around going, "We're gonna die!" Ah! And, however, I'm not really sure how to like go through this, like go through the motions. I guess I should just first give my spoiler-free review of the film, saying that it is a convoluted plot that does not make much sense. Like you can claim that maybe I just didn't get it, but I will call you a fucking idiot if you say that, because that's not the problem with this film. This film tries to make its story look logical, but it's not. Tries to tie it into different historical perspectives and different historical real events to make it seem deeper and more serious than the old movie, than the previous films. And to a certain extent, yes, it does succeed in creating a serious tone. The problem is that, yes, I felt that the humor needed to be be dampened and taken away, or sort of held down, both in the first and especially the second movie. But I guess maybe this movie proves that that was not the case. That maybe the first movie did pretty much get the humor as right as you could possibly do, because besides some terrible acting from certain parts, other characters, other actors who just feel like they don't belong in this movie, and having a story that doesn't really hold together, and action sequences that are too long and too confusing, with the editing going all crazy. The biggest problem with this movie is that the movie is... I try to put this to my friend who was with me. This movie feels schizophrenic. And I don't think I've ever really used that word to describe a movie before, but that's exactly what this movie is. It's schizophrenic. Because Michael Bay and one of the screenwriters, Aaron Kruger, apparently had this list of things that were not included in the film, and things that were forbidden that were in the previous films, and how they were going to make this film better. Of course, this is supposed to be the serious movie, and even though there is humor in it, the humor is definitely cut back and held on the sidelines. And the thing is, it doesn't flow at all. Because unlike the first movie, where they sometimes use stupid jokes that I did not like to break up tension, which I'm usually not a fan of, and wasn't a fan of in that movie either, it still served to make the movie still entertaining. It didn't, like in the second one, break everything and make everything feel unimportant. This film instead goes for the exact opposite and tries to separate humor and seriousness completely. Therefore, creating this where you can have really not funny, because nothing in this movie, none of the jokes in this movie are funny. There are a couple moments where I actually sort of smirked, but mostly because of how stupid the jokes were, not because they were funny. But they've separated it. They have taken all the levity out of certain scenes to just add humor, and vice versa. So you'll have a humor-filled scene, and then have a really dark scene directly after. It creates a movie that pretty much acts like a yo-yo. Downward spiral, upward spiral, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it becomes so incredibly hard to follow. Not because you don't get what the movie's trying to do, but because it creates this really hard and often just annoyingly weird, emotional response in you as the viewer. This movie doesn't know what it wants to be. It's Michael Bay trying to do what Michael Bay does, but still, I guess, trying to, listen to the critics. And what happens is it becomes a film that is still 2 hours and 35 minutes long, and mostly filled with these action scenes and these dark, mean, scenes of people yelling at each other, swearing, and just being mean-spirited. Because also, a lot of the humor just disappears halfway through the movie, and I guess to a certain extent I'm glad that we don't get Michael Bay's disgusting attempt at humor that we got in the first two films, but there's no humor there to replace. There's no smart humor in the dialogue. The humor just disappears completely, and I can tell you that pretty much any action film that is completely devoid of humor is not going to be an entertaining film. I mean, why is Die Hard one of the best action movies ever made? Not just because it has kick-ass action and a great plot and great effects. No, because John McClane, even though you really believe, like, the film has an immense, like, weight to its action, making it feel very real and very close to you, John McClane still has this attitude that makes it so good, because he's all like, oh, fuck, I can't do this, oh, shit, everything's going to hell, and you feel sorry for him because he still tries to keep his mood up. This movie does not have that. In fact, I was shocked that what they've done is, by making the movie more serious, they've also altered some of the characters. Simmons is the same, like John Turturro's character, is the same crazy bastard he was in the second movie. They left him being as crazy as he was in the second movie, which is not a good thing. He is the character they should have actually like either taken out of the film completely, because he's not really important to the plot at all. And the few things he does contribute, they could just as well have like given on to other characters or found other ways around. But the character they've changed the most is Shia LaBeouf's Sam Witwicky, and they have changed him into this completely unlikable bastard. Like, we open to Sam's plot. I'm not going to get into complete spoilers yet, but we open to Sam's plot, and he's looking for a job. That's what they established. He's looking for a job, and he's living with his new girlfriend. They basically like just completely forget about Megan Fox. I think they mention her character like 3 times in this movie. I think it was 3 or 4. They never say her name, Michaela, so she's never even like given that much room. They just imply that she dumped him twice, and they just say her name, like, or they mention her, like the other girl twice. So I think she gets 3 or 4 mentions, where 2 of them are pointing out that she dumped him, because we can't have the hero dumping the girl from the other movies, because that makes us like the hero less. And I would like to argue that you could not like the hero less than you almost like Shia LaBeouf in this movie. But anyway, he's living with his new girl, Carly, played by the abysmally awful Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, who is a Victoria's Secret model. She has never acted before, and it's obvious that she's just there to be eye candy now that we don't have Megan Fox. But anyway, so we established that his girlfriend she's working for some rich dude. She is paying the entire rent. They live in this weirdly like old apartment thing that like has a chandelier in the roof and like it looks like an old mansion, only it's an apartment somewhere in Washington DC. She's paying the rent. He is just looking for his job. Bumblebee's out doing some secret mission with the Autobots, and yeah, Shia LaBeouf is a whiny bitch. And not a whiny bitch like he was in the first movie. He was like, I just put my car back. No, he's all like, oh, you're bringing all the money. Oh, I saved the world. Like, basically, he's whiny because he can't be a hero anymore. And he says that flat out. He's like, oh, I want to have a job that matters. I used to save the world. I saved the world twice. Why do I have to work in a mailroom? And it's like, you know what, Shia, fuck you. I work at a grocery store. I've never saved the world, so I guess I shouldn't even expect better than that. But you know what? I'm an everyday Joe, for now, and I don't give a flying fuck about your attitude problems, because I have my own problems to worry about. I do not go to the movies to hear you whine about how much your life sucks when you got a girlfriend who is a supermodel and who's paying the rent, and your best friend's a fucking yellow and black robot car. Sorry, you're not going to get any sympathy from me. See if there's anything else I can point out like directly before I get into spoilers, and say all these actors they've gotten a hefty ton of actors in this movie that I don't get. Frances McDormand, John Malkovich, and Patrick Dempsey are all added to this cast, and I don't understand why any of them signed on to this movie, except for money, obviously. But I mean, why are they like? And also like, except for Patrick Dempsey, I mean, I'm starting to wonder if like Michael Bay has a direct connection to the Coen brothers or something, because John Turturro is a Coen brothers like repeater. Frances McDormand is also a Coen brothers repeater, and she's married to one of the Coen brothers. I think I don't remember if it's Ethan or Joel, but she's married to one of the Coen brothers. And John Malkovich was in Burn After Reading, so I'm starting to wonder if maybe John Turturro being in this movie is like, hey, if I get a raise, I can get these actors in here. And Patrick Dempsey, I don't get why he's in this movie either. It's like, oh yeah, it's announced now that he's gonna leave Grey's Anatomy. If this is the kind of movie he wants to make instead of being in Grey's Anatomy, I'm saying he did a bad move, because this movie's not good. He doesn't really get to prove that he has anything to bring to the motion picture scene. And yeah, I don't understand why these actors of pretty high caliber chose this. In fact, I'm kind of disappointed in them, especially Frances McDormand, who's pretty much only in stuff that I liked so far, or at least stuff that I guess you could say has a higher level of quality than this does. Yeah, I think that's everything I'm going to say without going directly into the film's plot. So if you haven't seen the movie, take away that it's a confusing movie. I don't think the 3D is that good, I should probably add also. Even though a lot of people say this 3D is awesome, I didn't really find it that engaging. The action is just like the other Michael Bay's Transformers movies. Confusing, shot too tight, even though it's a little bit better. It's the kind of type of MTV editing that just makes you feel like the more confusing, the better. The robots, still, their designs are not good, except for the ones that were in the first movie. Like, pretty much all the Decepticons are gray, and there are, I think they even say, nine Autobots, like main Autobots in this movie, and they all have bright colors, so you know the 9 Autobots because, oh, that one's green, that one's blue, that one's red. You know that they're good because they have colors. And then there's Ironhide, who's black. He's like the one that's the confusing. But except for him, they're all brightly colored, so you know the Autobots. But so yeah, the story tries to be deep but fails. It just feels stupid. The plot twists, because there are a few, are mostly either just head turning or obvious from the get go. And yeah, it's not that good a film. It's lost the entire charm of the first film. Better since the second one, because by taking away the charm completely, they have at least taken away all the idiocy and horrible humor the second one brought to the table. So yes, it is slightly better than the second one, but that's not saying much. If you want to see a good action movie, go watch Super 8. Even though it has far less action in it, the action sequences it brings to the table are far better and feel more realistic and more down to earth and heavier than the Transformers ones do. And I think when you talk about action, that's the one thing you need to talk about. Heaviness. Weight is everything in action. If buildings fly away like they're made of styrofoam, it doesn't feel interesting, because it makes it feel like what you're seeing is just CGI. And that's completely what everything in Transformers does. In the trailer you can see buildings falling down, and when they get to that part of the story, maybe that's my own emotional involvement, which was pretty much zero at that point, because that's 2 hours in and there are like 35 minutes left. But I also felt like it just wasn't good. Like the action didn't feel like earthly. It didn't feel like it had any gravity to it. And when it doesn't have gravity, it doesn't flow. Yeah, that's it. Not a good movie. But I'm gonna get into some spoilers. Just pick apart a little more. I guess you should start from the beginning. I actually have the plot synopsis here on Wikipedia, because this is so confusing that I can't hold it together by myself. So yeah, it opens up with another fucking narration from Peter Cullen's Optimus Prime, like the other two movies, talking about adding something to the Transformers mythos just for the sake of it, because we need that. To establish that there's new stuff happening that's interesting. Even though we didn't know about it before, there was a ship called the Ark that left Cybertron and crashed onto our moon, and yeah, that happened. It crashed on the moon, and that was why the arms race, the race to space, happened between the Soviet Union and the United States, was because both sides wanted to find out what was on the moon. And when Neil Armstrong, they tried to tie it in, because there was a 21-minute period, because they were having a live feed when they made it to the moon, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. And they're trying to say that this 21-minute period when they were on the other side of the moon and they couldn't be contacted, that what they were doing then was they were having a secret mission looking for this thing, and they found a giant spaceship, and in that spaceship was a fucking transformer and had all these weird pillar things with him. Then apparently these pillars, the robot is Sentinel Prime, the leader of the Autobots before Optimus. Optimus was his second in command, and these pillars that they find are basically teleportation pillars. So if you have all these, every pillar activates and can teleport matter from one part and from one place to another, and that becomes the film's main plot device. Is the fact that these pillars, the Decepticons want to use these pillars to bring Cybertron, the entire planet Cybertron, into Earth's atmosphere, so I guess they can rebuild it or something. It makes no fucking sense, because everyone knows if you were to bring a planet into another, next to another planet, you would end up destroying the planet you're on, destroying the atmosphere, and you fuck everything up, and make it so every person on this planet dies. If you were to place a planet that I'm guessing is even supposed to be bigger than Earth, because it almost looks like Cybertron. You get to see parts of Cybertron like getting over the Earth, and it looks like Cybertron is supposed to be bigger than Earth, which would mean that you would kill everyone on this planet. And I get if that's what the Decepticons want, but the reason why the Decepticons want to teleport not themselves and resources back to Cybertron to rebuild it, but bring Cybertron to us, is because they want human beings to help them rebuild Cybertron. But how can we help them rebuild Cybertron if they put Cybertron in front of the sun and create celestial problems that will kill every human being and animal on this planet? This plot makes no sense. It's fucking retarded. And we're going to get even further into that. So yeah. They find these pillar things and take a few of them with them or something. But no one knows about it except the founding members of NASA. And the worst part of all about this thing is that Buzz Aldrin, one of the 2 men on the moon, actually has a cameo. He pisses over his own space mission for a paycheck. And that is disgusting. Besides that, we get to see the Autobots are they're Peter Cullen is having his narration not only about that but about the Ark, but he also we live here on Earth, protecting people, helping mankind keep their species free. And the way they help keep the species free is apparently by helping only Americans, because the Americans who feel for example, the Middle Eastern countries should not be allowed to have nuclear facilities of their own. We're not talking about nuclear weapons. We're talking about nuclear power plants and stuff like that. Apparently, the Transformers are all American because they agree with this, and we are introduced to Optimus and Bumblebee and all that coming up on this nuclear facility in the Middle East and blowing the crap out of it and stopping these fucking sand monkeys from harvesting nuclear power, because God knows if someone shouldn't have nuclear power, it's those motherfucking Middle Eastern countries. Fuck them. America, man. Basically, this entire movie just feels like a fucking poster for for America's awesomeness. And I'm very anti-political like that. I don't like when a movie tries to feed me that one government's politics are more valid than another one's directly, and this movie obviously does, especially right from the get-go when it pretty much just depicts the Middle Eastern people as being wrong just because, they want to have nuclear power. It's illegal. Watch these robots blow them up. But yeah, I guess we should get all the historical things out of the way while we're at it. Besides the whole moon landing thing, the other really annoying part is that there is this connection to Chernobyl, where they say that some Russians got some of these pillars or some sort of the Russians got a part of this spaceship, and they used it to somehow power Chernobyl, and that's why Chernobyl blew up, and that just made me sick, because it just felt like they were, they were just trying to desperately tie it into other historical events. And I don't like that when it's about things where people actually died. It's just gross. It was like, oh yeah, it was the Transformers' fault that all these people in Chernobyl died. It's just wrong. Yeah. So the movie fails at hooking hooking into the past events, actual historical events, and also whenever they do these, they have these stand-ins for. They have a stand-in for Barack Obama, who doesn't look like Barack Obama, but not even in silhouette. They have a stand-in for John F. Kennedy, who doesn't look like John F. Kennedy at all. And I think they only use real footage of Richard Nixon, so I think he gets away with it. But still, it's pretty terrible. God, what else? Yeah, I'm having a hard time talking about this movie because this movie is 2 hours and 35 minutes long, and it's confusing. It's confusing because it feels like it's so slow. It's slow for an action movie, and it takes so long to get anywhere that I have a hard time even really thinking, figuring out what the hell to talk about or where to start. I'm sitting here with the plot synopsis on Wikipedia, and even that's making me confused. Not because I wasn't paying attention, because I was, but it's hard to keep all the robot smashing and all that in line. And you have all, as I said, Shia LaBeouf's main problem throughout the first half of this movie is that he feels inadequate because he's worth to being a world savior. He's used to being a world savior, and now he just has to be a normal Joe, and he's complaining about not being involved in military action. And he has a new girlfriend who doesn't see the problem because, well, she isn't the old one. She hasn't been on these adventures with him. She believes what he's saying because he has the fucking blue little robot that was humping Megan Fox's leg, and another little fucker of the same size, who they never mentioned before, living in his house. Where'd the other one come from? I don't know. They have this disgusting little fucker with electric blue. Basically, it looks like he has a fucking sea anemone living on his head. And they're like, oh yeah, we're living with you. Oh, maybe this girl dumped you like the last broad did. That was heartless. Oh yeah, we bros got to stick together. And I was like, oh really? They had to bring you back. Oh really? Yeah, his name is Wheelie. That rhymes. He actually made me afraid that the twins were going to show up, but thankfully they were not included. He was the most comic relief character we got, and I guess that was okay. In fact, the parents were in this movie for less than 5 minutes, all in all, maybe up to 8 minutes. But I almost think the movie could have had more of them because it seemed like Michael Bay had almost realized that they got too crazy in the last movie. I liked the parents in the first movie. The second movie was awful, but everything about that movie was awful. So I think that if they had done them right, maybe they should have given the parents a little more screen time than they did. Yeah, Shia LaBeouf's big problem. He wants to impress his girlfriend. He wants to satisfy his parents, and also he finds out that his girlfriend is working for Patrick Dempsey, who is, of course, Mrs. Suave, sexy man, and he goes crazy. He's like, I don't like you working for him. That's he gave you a car. Ooh, I don't like that. Ooh, he basically Shia LaBeouf goes on the same rage envy streak that Megan Fox did in the second film because it worked so good the first time around. And what else? He eventually. I'm not even going to be able to make this. I could talk about this movie for hours, but I would need another person to bounce off because I just can't sit here and ramble because it's just going to repeating myself. But he eventually meets up with the fucking Autobots and becomes a part of the team. He also gets a job working for John Malkovich. Patrick Dempsey, who plays the boss of the girlfriend, as I said, implies that he's the one that managed to get Shia that job. The Decepticons are in Africa for some reason during all this, and apparently they have human spies working for them as well. And Laserbeak or Razorbeak or whatever his name is, the vulture transformer, is killing them off one by one. And that little Chinese dude who's the doctor from, who's the gangster from The Hangover, is one of them. and he's a horrible, like, humor character who runs around being a fucking idiot, being all sexist to women, and giving Shia weird looks, and then eventually turns out, like, yeah, he knows who Shia LaBeouf is, and he warns Shia LaBeouf that he needs to get in contact with the Autobots because, the Decepticons are going to kill everyone, basically, and then they kill him and kill a lot of other people, and Shia LaBeouf eventually gets in contact with the Autobots, and, yeah, it just goes from there. Like, I don't know what to say. This movie's 2 hours and 30 minutes long, and it feels like every time they introduce a plot point, it's just to keep the movie going longer. It's not like anything really... Because, I mean, they eventually... I guess the big thing is that they eventually managed to reawaken this Sentinel Prime, the Prime that was Optimus's boss, and get him to Earth. He's voiced by Leonard Nimoy, which I guess is a reference to the old Transformers movie from the 80s, because he voiced he was the voice of Galvatron, the upgraded version of Megatron in that film. But anyway, they wake him up. Optimus says that you can be the leader if you want to, and hands him the Matrix of Leadership, to which Sentinel says, "No, I'm no longer your teacher. You are mine," and gives him the Matrix of Leadership back. Big spoilers, which I figured out in like 5 minutes time. He's the villain. Yeah, Sentinel is the villain Transformer. He was on his way with his ship and all these things to Earth to meet up with Megatron to fuck all the Autobots over because he just wanted to end the war or something like that. So yeah, that's the one thing I don't get is that yeah, he's pleasant to portraying everyone anyway. Why didn't he just kill? Why doesn't he kill Optimus right away? There are 2 instances in this movie where he could just straight up kill Optimus. One is the one where Optimus gives him the Matrix of Leadership. He should just take the Matrix and stab Optimus to death. Say that because I think they're out in the middle of nowhere. Then also he could just say that fucking Decepticons killed Optimus. He'd get away with it, and no one would care. Like anyone, no one would be all the wiser. Second scenario is at the end where they've actually had a fight, and Sentinel in the middle of the movie, and Sentinel points out that you're lucky I didn't kill you after they fought, and I'm like, why? I actually turned to my friend. I'm like, why didn't he kill him? Optimus is obviously going to kill him in the end or something. Why didn't he just kill him? It's the fucking monologue syndrome that The Incredibles make fun of, where all these characters over talk and like I'll talk a big game because that's what I do. It's so annoying, and the characters do it over and over again. All the characters do it. All the villains do it because big surprise number 2. Like after we find out that Sentinel's the bad guy, Shia LaBeouf, whose girlfriend has left him because he's obsessed with helping the army. He goes to find her. I don't remember exactly the context of why he goes to find her, but he's gotten new information. He has to help the Autobots. I think it is because Sentinel has turned evil, and he goes to find his girlfriend after finding that out. And she's at this banquet with Patrick Dempsey. So he sits down there, and he wants to talk to his girlfriend, so he tries to take her outside. And basically what happens right away is that Patrick Dempsey starts walking behind them, and you can tell right away that, oh no, they're going to make Patrick Dempsey into a sleazeball villain or something, and that's exactly what they do. Patrick Dempsey, straight up, like they get into her car that he gave her, which has been like the main reason behind Shia LaBeouf being jealous of Patrick Dempsey. And the car turns out to be a Decepticon, and it kidnaps her, and says like, and he's all like, "Yes, my father was one of the original NASA founders. He cooperated with the Decepticons from the get-go, and I inherited that. I have to help the Decepticons," or some shit like that. It's all about inheritance apparently, and being on the winning side. So he gives Shia LaBeouf a wristwatch, which is a tiny Decepticon. Like how all the Decepticons have these more awesome abilities. Like, you have the Autobots, they're all these lame-ass trucks and shit, but the Decepticons are scorpions, they're planes, tanks, little wristwatches, humans. Like, I get why the Decepticons are bad, but Optimus Prime straight up says at the beginning of the film that we would have lost the war if it wasn't for this one ship and this one mechanical thing on the Ark ship. Like, if the majority of your planet is Decepticons, doesn't that naturally make, by like logic of majority, mean the Decepticon opinion is the right one? Shouldn't you just accept the fact that you've lost? I don't get it. Like, the Decepticons have smarter abilities, better abilities, more versatile abilities, and they're overall stronger because almost every single time Optimus or any other Autobot fights a Decepticon, the Autobot gets their asses handed to them. Oh god. Well, yeah. So Sam has to go and figure out, because at this point in the film, it's got when Sentinel goes crazy, the Earth's governments right away vote to have the Transformers booted off our world. They get voted off the island, and they have this ship that they're going to send, this spaceship that apparently brought the second wave of Autobots to Earth. Even though we established in the first movie that the Autobots could just pretty much throw themselves into Earth's atmosphere without the need of a ship. But apparently that wasn't, the second batch I guess wasn't as strong because they apparently needed a fucking rocket to get into Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, they're going to send them up in this ship along with two new characters that are apparently the maintenance crew of it, called the Wreckers, played by two, a Scottish and I guess an Irish or Welsh, some British stereotype, who I guess are supposed to be working class, angry angry robots. And as I've said 50 times, I just don't get the need for them. I don't get, this rocket doesn't have any real purpose. I mean, it has a purpose narrative-wise, but logically, it does not need to be in the movie at all. Yeah, so the Autobots are going to get sent up into space and sent to another planet or something. Patrick Dempsey says that you are to go and spy on the Autobots and find out what their big strike plan is, if there is one. If you take your watch is linked into your neurological center of the brain. If you try to take it off, or if you try to do anything, it will either tell them or warn them. It will kill you, basically. So he wears this stupid fucking watch. He sees them fly up into the sky within their rocket, because he goes up to Optimus "What's the plan, Optimus?" And Optimus is all "There is no plan. We're leaving. Bye. See ya." And they get up in their rocket. Shia LaBeouf watches. The Decepticons blow the rocket to smithereens, and the watch thing just, instead of killing Shia LaBeouf, which I guess again they should just do. For narrative purposes, they should, just for the sake of it, they should kill Shia LaBeouf, not just let him walk away. What point does that serve? But anyway, the watch jumps off and says "Thanks for being a douchebag," and then just leaves him alone. And then, of course, it turns out, the Autobots didn't really get on the rocket at all. Which also, again, just the rocket's existence isn't the only, inconsistency. The second inconsistency is the fact that in the first movie, or maybe it was the second movie, it was probably the second movie, Optimus did say that if the Earth's population admitted, or reached an agreement that they did not want the Autobots on Earth, they would leave peacefully, which obviously they didn't, because they stayed on Earth to fight the Decepticons. In hindsight, I guess that's a good thing, but he still broke his promise by saying that, if you vote us off this planet, we will leave peacefully and let you do what you do, because this is your planet. So yeah, in a way, the Autobots are fucking dictators. Basically, that leads into, I guess what you could say, if you can call this movie a 3-act structured film. It works into the third act, having Optimus. Basically, of course, all they're trying to do is stop Megatron and stop Sentinel from bringing Cybertron into Earth's atmosphere. And yeah, it all ends up in Chicago. Patrick Dempsey has Carly, Sam's girlfriend, locked up in Trump Tower, and Shia LaBeouf has to get into the city, which is basically a replica of the War of the Worlds, the remake, with them blowing people up. Like, this movie has no business being PG-13. There are dead people everywhere. There's quite some blood, and I guess the way they get around it is that when Sentinel runs around the city killing people, he has this, disintegrator ray which only leaves bones. And I guess by not showing any gore, the movie gets around and becomes a PG-13. But it's still, like, massive, massive, massive death. And I don't get how this movie should not be seen by anyone, like, any youngins. Because this movie's, okay, it should not be seen by anyone, period, but it should not be seen by young people because there are a lot of people that get the axe here. But anyway, so in Chicago, like Shia LaBeouf, I think it's Simmons, who I don't even get into because his character sickens me in this movie. They drive into the city. I'm not even going to give any proper explanations. I'm too tired for this shit. I'm mumbling. You can hear that. They go into the city and get up in the tower. Shia LaBeouf starts pointing his gun at Patrick Dempsey, but doesn't kill him, even though he promised he would kill him earlier in the film. They do a bad Back to the Future ripoff with Sam falling out a window and of course landing on a flying car, on a flying machine and coming back up into the window, and everyone's like, "How are you alive?" And then it just becomes a lot of running. It becomes a Michael Bay film at that point. That's why you don't really need to even explain it, because it becomes everything a Michael Bay film is. They have to stop the Sentinel. They need to stop Megatron. They need to start Patrick Dempsey, and they do it in sequence. The only thing that surprises me at all is that Shia LaBeouf, and which has the most potential to be an awesome scene, is that Shia LaBeouf there's this other new Transformer, this old Transformer with blue hair, called Q, who gives Shia LaBeouf these weird inventions that he's made, apparently, like a grappling hook and some basically sticky grenades. And Shia LaBeouf uses these sticky grenades and this grappling hook to kill Starscream. And the only problem is that Shia LaBeouf does what Shia LaBeouf does, and he's all like, no, I gotta get off here, cut it off, the bomb's gonna explode, bomb, Basically, if Shia LaBeouf had been a real man here and shut up, this sequence would have been badass. This could have been a really cool sequence, just to see this one human evolve to the point where he managed to kill off one of the main villains by himself. But unfortunately, the dialogue ruins that from coming into effect. But yeah, that is still one of the better action sequences, despite Shia LaBeouf's yelling and Shia LaBeoufness. Other than that, yeah, they're falling buildings, like the ones from the trailer with the buildings tilting. I got bad World Trade Center vibes, and it made me feel like, oh, great to know that shy of 10 years, it's okay to make movies with falling skyscrapers, because, hey, let's face it, 10 years have passed. As long as the building's not falling vertically and it's falling horizontally instead, it's okay. And then Shia LaBeouf gets dominated by Patrick Dempsey a second time, and then eventually, I guess, he picks up a rebar with concrete on it and smacks him over the head. And then, this is, I guess, the big thing. Rosie Huntington-Whiteley's Carly, Optimus pretty much gets his ass handed to him by Sentinel. He gets his arm ripped off and all this shit, and survives because Carly manages to tell Megatron, well, it's too bad now that he's around. We're all going to be, we're going to be his slaves and not yours, because, I mean, you're old and broken and your head's kind of messed up since the last movie, so we're not going to follow you because you kind of suck. And Megatron's like, I don't suck. I'm going to kill you. And, he's this close to killing her. He's like, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. You're right. And then, you see, how he's, how Sentinel, of course, is just about to kill Optimus. There are, 15 different shots in this movie where someone's about to kill someone. There's, this one moment where someone's about to execute Bumblebee, and then Optimus comes and shoots them. And exact same here. Sentinel is about to execute Optimus. And then, right at that moment, Megatron comes from behind and shoots him in the back. And he shoots him in the back and then kills him in an instant. Crippled Megatron manages to just shoot him once in the back and then just go up in front and fucking kick his ass. Optimus can't do it, despite being on, like, having the exact same perks as Sentinel does from the get-go of the fight. And then, of course, Optimus turns around and kills Megatron right away and pulls off his fucking head. The fight between our our main Autobot and our main Decepticon lasts all but a minute, if even that. And then the movie pretty much just ends. We established, just like in the second movie, that Carly and Sam love each other, because that was, I guess, their biggest thing they could say in this movie. Bumblebee hints that they should get married, and Optimus just says that, yeah, well, we live here on Earth, we protect its people, we're kind of cool, we like this place, and we're going to stay here. And everyone's like, yeah, that's pretty much a wrap. And then the movie just ends with us just seeing a picture of this guy, and then Frances McDormand kissing John Turturro, and I guess the other way around. That's the plot synopsis, and I really don't want to go into any more depth because I've already explained this movie sucks in the same way that any Michael Bay movie sucks. Its editing is bad. I feel like after going to see Super 8 directly afterward and comparing the two's editing, in the action scenes right off, I felt like Super 8 was so much better in every single conceivable way. Basically, the train crash in Super 8 is the best action sequence by far this year, so far. And nothing in Transformers, despite all its extra money and all its extra amount of action, comes close to it. This movie's terrible. Not as bad as the second one, as I said. The humor is separated from the main plot more, but that makes the movie even harder to like, because there's no real constant flow. Everything just feels like it starts and stops. And the characters are unlikable. The charm is all but gone. Sam's a character I don't like anymore. I don't like Shia LaBeouf as an actor anymore because of these films anymore, pretty much. And, well, yeah, all the Decepticons are dead, except for, I don't know if Soundwave dies. I think maybe they forgot about him like they did in the previous film. He's in this movie, but I don't think they killed him. Maybe they did. I have a hard time knowing which Autobots or Decepticons die. And yeah, this movie's just a mess, just like the other movies. But this was supposed to be the last one Michael Bay and Shia LaBeouf worked on, and my friend was asking me, how do you go on from this? How do you keep on going? And I said, well, obviously you just take the movie and then you just all the Decepticons are dead, so what do? It's like, well, you just add something where they throw the Decepticon pieces into space, and then Unicron, the villain from the old movie from the 80s, comes in, and he has the Decepticons, and he rebuilds Megatron as Galvatron, and then he comes and tries to eat Earth, and then it becomes a fight for the Earth's survival. And we were sitting in Burger King when I said that. I'm like, oh shit, I just wrote the fuck. I just totally plot pointed the next movie in the series, didn't I? Because for that, you wouldn't even need to have Shia LaBeouf in it. You could just have a new character with a new fucking Transformer, and maybe just have Bumblebee be off with Sam or something. Oh man, I'm done talking about this. I have a headache now. I'm gonna go out and take an aspirin or something, and then I'm gonna try and record my very late review of Super 8, because I almost felt like I held it off for so long that I wanted to be able to say that its action sequence was better than anything in Transformers by going to see Transformers first. Now that I've seen Super 8 so many times, and I know I'm not going to see it anymore in the theater, I feel like I need to address it. So yeah, Transformers Dark of the Moon, not a good action film. Way too long. A lot of people in the theater were looking at their cell phones or watches toward the last 20 minutes of the film, not just me. So that, yeah, it was not just me who thought that movie was overly long. The characters are unlikable, acting's bad to most extents. I don't understand why certain actors are in it. Character motivations make no sense on both robot and human sides. and some of the historical the historical hooks either don't make sense or are downright offensive. It's offensive to women because obviously Rosie Huntington-Whiteley is completely used as eye candy. It's offensive to, well, I think it's offensive to Brits. It's offensive to like almost all ethnicities except for black people, ironically, which was the second one's big bully victim. But yeah, it's a bad Michael Bay movie. If you really want to, like, if you've seen the other two, I say go see this movie. Either maybe you should just as well go see it here so you can get the 3D effect, because otherwise you're just gonna be stuck at home watching it, and that might just be even worse. So yeah, don't go see this movie. But if you have to see it, if you ever feel like you have to see it, go see it in the theater and never watch it again once it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray. And that's it. Bye.